thank you very much for coming. It's wonderful to see you all. This will be a wonderful program. I know you'll all enjoy it very much. Also, we want to thank the town fathers, the officials, for giving us this space for our meetings, and also for the space upstairs for our office and museum. And what else do I have to say? All right. Well, I guess I'll just turn the program over now to the meeting. So we'll have the secretary come up and read the slate of officers for our election. And we'll ask the people whose names are read to stand if they're here, because there's always somebody who's new.
Okay, so the officers who are nominated are, of course, Mary Favalli as president, Ursula Lyons, who couldn't be here today, is vice president, Debbie Keeney, treasurer, and Debbie, thank you. Okay. Again, if you can stand, and myself as secretary. Ellie Berry. Can you stand, Ellie? Thanks. Oh, okay, sorry. Beth Gray Nix, Anthony House, Tony House, John Veely, Esther Mann, Joan Meenan, Nancy Summers, no, not here, Joe Bausk, Betsy Cutler is not here, and a new member whom we're proposing, Stuart Hoover, who will be replacing Jackie Bausk, who is resigning from the board. Here he is.
Are there any additions to this slate or any objections? Well, then the secretary can vote the slate as presented.
Okay.
Is it unanimous, the secretary? Okay. And Ursula would have been here to do this herself because she was the one that worked on the slate of officers, but she's busy with arrangements that she made a long time ago before the change of date. You know, we all expect this to be the first Sunday, but that wasn't possible. And also I want to thank all the people who stepped up when I called them at about 11:30 or so, because that was when I realized with a phone call that I had a message on my answering service that Jackie could not come today. And Jackie is the one who does all our setup with all the art and everything. She's not feeling well. So, and then she told me about a few other people who weren't able to come, and I thought, oh my heavens, I have to do it all myself. But I called the rest of the board, and they all came in and chipped in, and we got it together. So, all right, I guess I'll just turn the program over now to Lee.
Comment.
Debbie, the treasurer, will make a few remarks.
I've been told I have to make it brief, but I do have copies of our whole annual report of all our income and expenses. And but Lee came up with a saying that I should just say that we always need money, and that to leave us in, remember us in your will. But we depend on, of course, our dues, which are very minimal, as you know. They're only $25 or $35 per family. But we, a big source of income is also the sales table, which is a big source, and meeting income as well. And members, non-members, we always hope we'll leave a donation to help support that. And we don't have huge expenses now because we don't have our own building, but we are going to get kicked out of this building sometime in the near future. The town wants it back, in which case we're going to have to build one, so we'll be having mammoth fundraising in order to build this new building. But I do have a copy if anybody is interested in how we spend our money, where we get our money, how, et cetera, and see me afterwards if you would like a copy.
Carmel.
Sorry?
O'Connell.
What about Carmen?
I'm going to make the announcement. Carmel asked if she could make an announcement about some of the 4th of July activities. Carmel? Carmel O'Connell? Oh, okay. Yeah.
The Historical Commission, which I'm not a part of, I'm a docent, has decided to take over the bake sale that the Women's Club used to do. They've given it up. And so we're adding it to our book sale to try to make a little money for the upkeep of the Hosmer House. So outside I have some flyers and a sign that just asks if anybody has time and is willing to do it, if they would like to bake a pie for the bake sale at the Hosmer House on July 4th. And the woman to call is Barbara Balco. I don't know if she's here. Oh, there she is, right over there. She could have made this announcement, but she is the one to call, and the number is out there, and there's little flyers on the table. So we could use your help. It's a new project that we're trying this year. Barbara, did you need to say anything?
Thank you very much. Now, Lee.
Thank you, Mary. We want to thank, as the first slide says, special thanks to Stephanie Andrew Lewis, Judy and Will Matt, and Edna and Bert Ty for materials that you'll be seeing either on the table or in this presentation. Thank you. We're starting in the center. This is a tour of, essentially, of Hudson Road, and through time. And as far as I'm starting you, perhaps wrongly, in the center of Sudbury at the town common, where in 1957 the Sudbury Historical Society, represented on the left by Forrest Bradshaw, we were just a year old at that time, and we had the audacity to create and place there with the Selectmen's acknowledgement, which Fairbanks is that? Which Fairbanks is that? Harvey Fairbanks. And who's that man on the right, Bert?
The man on the right is my father, Lawrence Betai. The man on the right in the picture is my father, Lawrence Betai, who was a selectman for many years. And his picture's up on the row there.
Yeah, in the Rogues Gallery there, right. So the Sudbury Historical Society presented the stocks to them, and it lasted for, I've got different reports, either 1963 or 1968. A school bus hit it. Now, why is because that's where it was, right down there on the bottom, right on the corner, a very dangerous area perhaps, but right in front of the Presbyterian Church. So now we're going across the street to look at the town hall. Now, it looks different than what this building looks like because that doesn't exist any longer. It burnt in 1930. It was all wood, and it burnt very quickly. And on the left, you see every so often they would have to, because of neglect, they would have to build the town carriage sheds. There were 22 of them at one point, but they would rot and they'd have to rebuild them to keep your horse in. But that's where the town hall was, right where the arborvitae and the sign is. So there is a dichotomy as the town in 1836 leased the land from the First Parish, no separation of church and state. And there is a view, a turn of the last century of First Parish when we had the shutters on it, and we had a fence around the very top lookout area. But everything else is the same, and that's what First Parish is, represents continuity in the town. And that's what it looks like today with very slight modifications. And then we have an object, part of this talk is about things you see every day and you wonder what the heck that is. And that is the posting stone, which is where it's always been in front of First Parish. And you would drive your horse and buggy up to it and be able to step out onto that stone. What's missing, there was another stone just to create another step there. But if you're on horseback, man or woman, you could get off your horse onto that stone. And then we have a monument that's about 30 feet away from that, almost on a neighbor's property of First Parish, and it's called the Axtell Monument, put up in 1953 by the Axtell family, which were early settlers here in Sudbury, except they didn't stay. But they're the only family that I know of, other than the Rices, that came back and have a plaque here for their family. And it is interesting to walk over there and to read it. It's on the left-hand side of looking at the First Parish. And this is showing the west side of First Parish, and taken the same day, I'd say, as the other picture. And that's what you see. Trees have grown up everywhere. Turn of the last century, we had cut down almost all the trees, and it makes it very difficult to envision what something looked like then and versus now. This is our first neighbor, which is 10 Hudson Road. It belongs to the Lorenzo Maggio family, and it's called the Stearns House, built about 1800. And the next one is another Stearns house. Some of these houses have not been thoroughly documented. They need some work. They may be online with modern information, but this is the house going west, which would be 15. Anyway, now here you see a driveway, and if you're able to blow that up, you can see that it's 24 Hudson Road. It goes almost straight up the hill. It is owned, it's a house at the top that no one gets to see anymore, even in the winter with the foliage gone. And that I'll be talking about when we get to the railroad station. But this is the next house, which is built in 1928, yeah. And then we have a very unique view. We've blown this up, we've blown up portions of it, and it's very interesting. It is taken from, this is Hudson Road, and there used to be a green sward in the middle of Peakham Road, so you could get to Peakham Road here or here. This car has a license plate from 1913, and I think it's a Maxwell. I'm not sure if anyone can yell out what they think it is, but it's taken us a while to figure out what this clump is. It is a man's coat thrown over the seat, and there is a man sitting there. That's the head, and he's white hair, and beyond that we don't know. And there's a little girl standing here, and there's a boy on a bicycle there. So they're captured in time. We know nothing about them, but there's First Parish, Hudson Road, the curve hasn't changed, and this house is the Stearns house. And that's what it looks like today, as close as you can get without standing in the middle of a road and getting killed, as I almost did. So then moving back, we have a road, and it's why we are calling this presentation the Thai Sales Neighborhood, because it is the only sign in the area you see. So why not? Thai Sales Neighborhood. So you turn here, and you first see the side track for the railroad that used to be here. And you cannot use the railroad because there are big trees in it today. Anyway, it's just a sidetrack But this used to bring the coal into Stiles Coal and empty it out further back. And this is the railroad station, which took me a while to figure out, and we have an eminent authority here in railroads, Rick Conrad, that can authenticate it. But there's the house at 24 Hudson Road, way up on the hill, and you can just barely see it through the trees, and I mean barely in this next picture. But the train station was on, here are the tracks, the side rails I just showed you. Here is the real track. This is a man standing here, Mr. Gibson, whose collection is at Beverly Historical Society. So this is the Sudbury Center train station, closed. It was no longer in use in 1938. This is that same scene, totally foliage. Back here, there is part of that, you can see through the foliage, that house way up on the hill.
Where's Hudson Road?
Tie Sales? The entrance to Tie Sales. And not to confuse you, but this is the other, this is a building you see right now when you're sitting across the street trying to get out of Pekin Road. And you say, what a pretty building. Well, it's luckily owned and maintained by Bert Tie and his family, and it's the railroad station. It was moved across the way from way over here to there and enlarged. It's still, is that a slate roof, Bert?
It's slate.
A slate roof, yeah. Now, it's not the original slate roof, perhaps, and it has the look of a railroad station, but I went through it with Bert, and we cannot find anything left architecturally from being a railroad station. That's the rear of it, and this is the inside door. The only thing that could possibly be from it being a railroad station. Nothing else is left. But Mr. Charles Way, that designed this building in 1932, designed that, and for who did he do the work for? We don't know.
Building?
Yes, we don't know.
For the railroad.
Well, no, he did it privately, but okay. Back to Tie Sales. Here we have an entrance. You look down the lane, and that's what you see, and then you come across this gentleman standing beside a hole in the wall. Now, Bert, come up close and say why you have a hole in your wall.
Well, I'm glad it's there because I think it probably has helped me with repeat business. That is, someone came to buy a repair sleeve or something from us one day, and then they didn't come back for a number of years, but they remembered we bought it at the place where there was a hole in the wall. So then they come back and buy another one, hopefully.
And okay, Jack. Exit. Nice to see you here at the Sudbury Town Hall, Edna, Ty. I'm Lee Swanson, curator of the Sudbury Historical Society. There was a store called Young's Store.
Yes.
Do you have memories of that?
Oh, yes. I used to be able to, there would be a special day of the month, I think, probably, that I was allowed to have a hoodsy.
A hoodsy?
Mm-hmm.
A frozen confection?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Did you save the covers?
No, I didn't. Well, yes, I think I did originally.
No,
They had
okay.
movie stars on
Yeah.
on the covers,
Or
but I gave up. I gave up on that.
No.
Yes, if the railroad was making noise, I would have heard it and I would have understood what it was. Yes, that's true.
And they did go through.
Oh, they did go through, yes.
And they
Yeah.
whistled at the crossing.
Yeah, and they waved.
Okay. And you used to go bicycling during the fair weather?
Just about a bicycle.
Alone or with your sister? Or?
Oh, not with my sister. We didn't get together really. It would be my friends. We'd get together at somebody's house maybe, or just go out and have an ice cream on our bikes.
And as a teenager, you got a job at the phone company,
Right.
which happened to be owned by,
By the Ties, Gladys and Lawrence Tie,
and who did you meet there?
and my husband. Of course, I knew him. You know, we both came from Sudbury, and we'd happened to see each other, so it was no big deal.
Right. Bert's gonna tell us about his youth and his business years in Sudbury, but thank you very much, Edna, and appreciate this.
Well,
This again. Thank you.
It's sort of interesting to think that people would know about these things. Some of these things I didn't remember. You know, you have to be refreshed.
Right.
Well, okay.
Right into yours. There you are.
Oh, I'm the chairman of the board now. My son Kevin is the president. We sell waterworks supplies throughout all of New England and through upstate New York. It means that we sell pipe, valves, water meters, which is our biggest line of successful line.
Right.
The valves are, of course, they're for water mains and for water in and out of a building or even within a building. We're here.
So a lot of open
Yeah.
light, and how would you describe it, Bert?
It's a very open office with deliberately high ceiling to provide an interesting location.
And a lot of glass brick of different designs.
Yeah. How about a picture of the president at his desk?
And who's that? Is that your son?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Kevin. That's Kevin. He's the president of.
I'd recognize Kevin. Yeah, yeah. Very good. Good job, Kevin. And you're.
We'll have a group of lunch a little late. I worked for 10 years for another company in Sudbury doing the same sort of thing. And when I departed, I started my own company
Right.
at my house on Old
In your
Lancaster
house?
Road.
In your basement, your first floor, or
Basement.
basement? Yeah. You really were doing it yourself and starting at the lowest point.
That's right. And Edna was the typist and the phone answerer.
Mm-hmm. It was a family business, and it
Yes.
still is a family business.
Yes, yeah.
Because your son now has.
Yeah.
The,
It's grown to 29 employees now, though.
that is a lot of growth, and you started this building at this location in what year? Did you actually start the first?
1965, I guess.
Okay, And it was slow, but you,
Yes, very slow, but steady. It continued to grow every year.
and you, at one point, you hired an architect to help you. And that's an unusual situation. I mean, usually somebody says, I'll build it this way and that's it. But you sought out help, and why was that?
Well, let me step back just a moment. The first building I designed with the help of an engineer from a contracting company.
Right.
And that was the first thing we built. After that, I had learned that I needed an architect, and I found a wonderful man who was an artist as well as being an architect. And unfortunately, he's living in California these days. So the last time we had to hire another architect, and who was a big disappointment.
Oh. But you decided, after having an engineer help you with the first one, that you needed the help of an architect. And why was that? What was lacking?
Well, I think Ed and I both are cognizant of the value of attractive things. And I bring this up to my employees from time to time. If you have an attractive business and you keep it neat and clean and you're pleasant to people, you're many steps down the road to a successful business.
Right. Good advice. And so the architect, his name, the first one was?
The first one was Lawrence Mann.
Mann.
He's an Asian from China,
Yeah.
and who became an American citizen.
Right. But his was it, where did these circles and alcoves concept come from? Was that him, or?
Those are his.
Those are his. But you designed alcoves for artwork which you owned, or then your wife designed?
The artwork you
which
see-
came first, the chicken or the egg?
The Lawrence, the architect, knew of Edna's talent with pottery,
Right.
and so he frequently had that in mind as he laid out counters and windows and so forth.
Right.
And we were constantly agreeing with him as to whether or not we needed more windows, and I just felt that having daylight was an important feature.
It makes it very light and airy here,
Yeah.
and it shows off the artwork.
As a matter of fact, a little sideline here that I just thought of. The second architect we had designed the front part of the new building, the newest part of our building. And then and I came up on one weekend and we were looking around and said, there ought to be some windows up there. And they're in back of Joe Dana's office out front. And we added 3 more windows.
Right. Because it just was lacking or missing, or looked like it needed light, or?
Just made it more pleasant again.
Okay. We have a very interesting tile layout, which sounds rather odd, that you have an interesting tile situation here. But it is interesting. And what other aspects did you ask the architect to put into this design?
Well, it was his idea to design that tile arrangement.
Right.
And it was somewhat different. It was so different, actually, that the contractor couldn't follow the directions, and he put it in wrong. And another feature about that architect that I enjoyed was that he was so determined to do his things correctly
Right.
that the contractor had to tear up the tile and put in what's there now. So,
That's following concept with hard-nosed business
that's right.
acumen.
That's
But,
what this architect was able to do. He was an artist. He was a persistent man,
right.
and he was a thinker. We were lucky to find him.
I think so. You had an interesting life. as a young man, as a child perhaps. Where did you live?
I lived on the Boston Post Road. My mother and father ran the telephone service for the town of Sudbury, New England Telephone and Telegraph Company for the area of Sudbury. And I worked at the switchboard a little, but I didn't like it. My brother, on the other hand, seemed to like it, and he did work there. But my mother's job as chief operator meant she hired a lot of high school girls, and one of them was someone who became my wife, Edna. I also had a cousin who was a operator, and other high school girls, Gloria Bonazzoli, for example. And so it was a unique experience. My mother had the responsibility, and father they had the responsibility of, for instance, calling all the call firemen when there was a fire. Yeah, they bring the siren, but then the telephone operators had to call the firemen at their home to tell them that there was a fire and where it was. Sudbury had one paid full-time fireman at the time. His name was Leo Quinn, and he's the one who lived in the
Lawrence Parsonage.
Lawrence Parsonage, and of course when there was a fire, he drove the fire truck to the fire.
Right.
And there were two fire trucks at the time, and my father, who heard somewhere along the line where the fire was, he drove the other truck. And they were stored in the town hall, the new town hall.
The basement, right.
The basement, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little sidelight there that I'd like to mention. When I started my business, I had to have a telephone, of course, and my mother, who was chief operator at the time, found a nice number for me, 2002. There it is. It's still there, 2002. Plus, we've added a few more lines.
Right, right. And so, when operating a telephone exchange as your mother, as your family did, what was the procedure back then? As far as did everyone have a private line?
No, there were. What did I forget what they call them?
Party line.
Party lines. That's right, party lines. And my wife's business, or her father's business, that's where she got that. We don't. There it is.
Right
there. The her number then was 115 ring 3, and people are surprised I remember that, but that's what I used to call her to get a date.
Embedded in your.
Yeah.
And 115 ring 2 was for what?
That was her grandfather's telephone number.
Oh.
So it was a matter of her father and her grandfather running the coal business for a period of time, and then, of course, her father carried on.
Well, thank you, Bert, for a very entertaining, informative time here, and with your wife. We appreciate it, and also appreciate you being a supporting member of the Sudbury Historical Society. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to do it.
And here we are back. Where are we? We're back on Hudson Road. We're going west, and we come across this interesting house through the trees, which is at 58 Hudson Road, built in 1790. and it's owned by Lovell Stewart. I'd like to know more about it, but we know that it was Mrs. R. Moore as of 1875, and whether it's our George Moore family, we don't know, but this is at 68 Hudson Road, and the only reason I'm showing it is that it has an interesting stone wall which shows a great deal of work, and everything I've tried to find out about it has not been successful as to, that's a modern house only built in 1963, but there must have been something there. And then we have the house on the corner of Hudson Road and Maynard Road, which address is actually 4 Maynard Road, which is a Dutch colonial. And I can't find anything about that either. But then we go across the street, and we come across this interesting building, perhaps, with a fireman with a hose in his hand at the top of the cupola. And this building is lacking something. If you stand there and look at it, you say, oh, this building needs a bell in that cupola. So maybe we can get together and put a bell up there. But that's because you're looking at the fire station, which was built in 1994. And then we come across this other place called Muscotaquid Village next door, which I'll show you what it looked like before 1973. Trees, 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 trees. You could get lost up there. It was all trees. And then down below at 51 Hudson Road, we have a house, a farmhouse, which is owned by a couple sitting here, Judy and Will Mack. And this is as it looked in 1945. And you see the barn is slightly, well, the barn has a sliding door on it back then. And it has a porch in the front because there's something interesting that we found through Bert's wife that we'll show you, but that's taken from the same view of what the house looks like today. But here we have 2 charming children, which is Edna and Lois, right? And they're in their swimming pool. Now, I bet the Macks didn't know they had a swimming pool in their front yard. There is proof, because this is what it looks like now. That's the porch in the back. And so someone's buried your swimming pool. You'll have to dig it up.
We did it, Lee, and I think it's still there.
Oh, okay. Okay. And
Bring over a shovel if you can have
okay, right. And there we have the Sudbury sign, which in the picture of the railroad station, it had already been removed. And apparently the Stiles, who owned the railroad station, at one point took it down, but not sure. But it apparently is the railroad station sign from Sudbury Center. And then we have this curious object, which is on display. I don't know if there are any archaeologists here. I've invited them, but it is a very unusual piece which the Mack family found in the house at 51 Hudson Road when they bought it. It had been left behind by the Stiles company, Stiles family, and this is all pecked out work. It is smooth on the top and ultra smooth on the bottom, weighs 7 pounds and a quarter. It is apparently an Indian artifact, but as Shirley Blank from Concord Museum says, she has never seen anything like it. It's very unusual, and she'll be over to look at it at some point. But then we have Linda Murray's farm on the corner of Pekin Road and Hudson Road, and the house is dates back. Well, it has. This is a Captain W. Brigham's as of 1875, but some maps show it on the other side of the road, and the barn has been rebuilt many times, but Linda has some raises horses, and there's her new fold called named after her son's rock band or blues band called, so it's called Chasing Blue is the name of this little fold, this colt. And so and across the street is the freight house for the railroad, which is owned by Andy Lewis. And this ugly box, which is the only remnant of the electrical work of the railroad, crossing signals, I guess, which we have only that ancient picture of, but Joe Malone is still running, I guess. And then we have this interesting place, which luckily the painting has been brought down from New Hampshire, is on display. You can look at it at the refreshment time. And it is our N. Young store, and it has, it closed in 1964, and it was on this building. We still don't have a separate picture of it. We are collecting, if you don't know, pictures of old Sudbury. This isn't old, but it's old enough for us to be interested in. It shows here a telephone pole and a mountain. That's the only two things, if you could see the mountain behind there, that remain. The telephone pole is exactly where it was. This lady has moved on, I guess. But I had a unremarkable memory of this because I went there with my father, and they had just torn the greenhouse down, as they just found earlier today. The greenhouse had been removed. It was a Burnham and Morrill, and greenhouse removed to Lincoln. But I walked through the broken glass and trash, and I was a kid, and I got my first tetanus shot because of it. I stepped on a nail. Pekin Road is right over here. And this building is, so Pekin Road is over here. So there's Village Green, and there's that. Okay, so moving on. Here we got wonderful pictures of life at the Young store back in the 40s and 50s. With Al Young. I'm not sure of this is a Spiller, but I don't know which one. And this is a pride of their store to have refrigeration in this time period, because they had opened their business in 1936 and operated since 1951 by his nephew Wilfred Spiller and his wife and son. And it's always been a place where folks enjoyed stopping and where they were always sure to receive a cheery greeting. Candy and soft drinks have been purchased by the small fry as well as many adults. And it was a friendly neighborhood store, the way we had at one point, from my count, 10 different neighborhood stores in this time period, just in Sudbury. But this was a big deal to have a good refrigeration case, even though it wasn't what they call a self-serve. You had to be waited on because you could only reach it from the rear. But this is the best picture of it, showing the merchandise they stocked. And this is Mrs. Young sitting there, along with Al. Al is there, I believe. But that was where the name comes from, her name. And here she is again with Mr. Spiller. And they're just waiting on each other. But as you see, they sold kerosene and many things that you just normally did in a general store. This sadly somebody moved, but I think the cameraman. But there they are outside, and that's the greenhouse behind, which is quite a building and a sort of a garden center. Another interior, shredded wheat. This is one of the Spillers waiting on trade, and this is what you would normal customers coming through. A slower time, and this is what is there now. It's the Waltham Newton Bank when it was first opened. And of course, this was done by, designed by our great architect here, self-trained, Bob Desjardins. He designed the village green for the Quirk brothers, from what I've heard. And it is quite a development. And it is totally emptied. It has gone through the 40B process, and it could be redeveloped. Buildings left as is, but redeveloped for housing if they had the money. And that's the long view of all the buildings. As you well know, it was a Hitchcock chair for a long while. And this is a child care right there, which used to have a beautiful hand-carved piece with the unicorn and the lion on it, which hopefully exists somewhere. But it is, according to the assessor's records, there's actually 3 main buildings here. This is the back part, the parking lot with Efron's on the left. And they all seem to enjoy some success, but they didn't last. The next door is a sad situation. It is the house owned by Gary Stone and his brother Channing. Channing no longer lives there. That's at 15 Hudson Road, and it was built in 1938 by Ed Stone, a local electrician, and who did most of the electrical work around this area. I know we had him do work, but now it is has some problems. And now we come to the next door is a park which has a name which you may recognize. Oops. It's the Frank H. Grinnell Veterans Memorial Park. And it is where our World War I marker is, which is missing a name by the name of Lloyd Bancroft. We have all his, Historical Society has his papers and helmet and gas mask, and he lived here in town, but somehow they didn't get his name on that plaque. But notice that it says, who served in the World War. When this plaque was made, that's all there was, one World War. There wasn't a 1 or a 2, it was just the World War. And so we have a young lady here, Winnie Grinnell, sitting there with her straw hat, who's has that named after her husband. And then we have, yes, let's give Winnie. And then a little building that was in what is now Grinnell Park, which there is only a slight impression of where it used to be. It's the Palmetto Garfield store. And on the second floor, President Garfield taught school as a young man when he lived in Natick. Otherwise, it was a country store, and this was a blacksmith shop. And I can tell you it was a blacksmith shop because that building and this building was moved down to the Marlboro line, and my father operated it as the Wayside Country Store. And this is what, this building was moved over here in Marlboro, and this part of the blacksmith shop still had circus posters on the inside wall, which were all blackened. But that was our sleeping quarters overhead once it got moved. But it was that's what it looks like now as to where it was in Grinnell Park on the left side. Otherwise, you've just taken a tour of Sudbury Center, Hudson Road, Thai sales area, and then we come to another story. Now, you may never have known that when the world was created, that something happened here in Sudbury that left its mark on the countryside. When the devil, Satan, was fighting with God, and they had a ruckus battle, and the devil was thrown down to the ground and left his mark, which is taken care of by Bert Tye and his family. You see where he landed? His butt landed right there, the devil's butt. Now, who else but Bert Tye would keep that? I mean, it's really remarkable. I mean, when you look at it, most people would look at it and say, "Oh, let's build a house there." Oh, no, that's not good. Let's preserve that mark. What is the address, Bert?
259 Old Lancaster Road.
Just be careful. It's dangerous traffic there, but.
Warren Hunt is the one who told me why that mark is there. Warren Hunt is the farmer who owned the land all the way from where the church is now, to all those houses that are on Old Lancaster Road.
The devil's butt. So you know we have many famous things here in Sudbury, but you can add this to the list where the devil landed on his butt and then went on. So thank you very much for this long list, including our business members, Cabicchio Greenhouses, Comrie Real Estate, Thai Sales, Wingate Healthcare, and along with the town itself. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments? Because it must have started.
Hey, I'd like to ask.
Okay, wait.
I'd like to add one story that my wife forgot, and it's very appropriate for the day. Edna's sister used to be bothered by wearing a, what do they call them, Edna?
Brace?
Lois,
Oh,
what
the
do they
snow
call
pants.
them?
Snow pants. Snow pants.
Okay, snow pants. And she used to stop at Al Young's store and take off her snow pants and walk to school. And then, of course, on the way home, she'd stop at the store again and put the pants back on. And that, I don't know how many times she got away with that, but finally, Al Young told her father. Lois, can you stand up, Lois? And I just learned another paragraph or two today on that story. I hadn't heard this part. This part is that Lois was terribly angry at her friend Al Young, and her mother had to rescue Al Young by saying he did that only because he was afraid that you would catch a cold. So Lois told me today that she didn't hold Al Young at fault.
Yes, Rich.
My name is Rich Davison. Grew up at 348 Boston Post Road, right next door to the telephone office. And there's lots of telephone stories I think lots of us could get going on, but I remember very vividly more than one time when my mother would be on the phone and she would talk a long time on the phone, and there'd be a knock on the door, and it would be the operator coming downstairs from next door to say, Alice, Betty, your sister's trying to get you on the phone, which means she'd hang up and then they'd connect her. So there's lots of stories about that, but I was thinking of that lovely painting taken from the north side to the south of the store on Hudson Road. And Danny Kraus owned the greenhouse there. And if I am not correct me, but I'm pretty sure, because I think I was in the planning board in those days, Danny Kraus's house was not torn down. That house was actually moved back and slightly to one side. And then when Bob Desjardins designed that whole complex, that building was transformed to be the corner building that's still there today. And so it's lots of stories about that development all by itself, because it was doomed to fail from the first time it was done. But we couldn't, it was a Bob Quirk project, and the town didn't rescind it. And so it's been a long struggle for many, many iterations.
For Village Green?
Village Green.
To be successful, yeah, because it had things against it.
It had lots of things, yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad. Questions? Yes. Yes, Mr. Mack. Will Mack.
Yeah, I'm Will Mack at 51 Hudson Road, the proud owner of that Sudbury Railroad sign. And when we first moved into the house, that sign was found up in the loft in our garage. And being very naive, I thought to myself, oh, well, this really belongs with the railroad station that's across the road, occupied at the time by Bert and Gloria Mader. And when they came over to welcome us to the neighborhood as part of the Welcome Wagon program, I will give it to them. Well, days went by, weeks went by, months went by, and there was no welcome wagon. And I said, well, the heck with this. I'm going to save it. And I repainted it and put it up over the barn. And I've been trying to beat Lee off with a stick ever since, because he wants it for the society. He may get it one of these days.
Thank you, Will. Questions? Yes. Shirley Place. And I didn't really talk about the painting. The painting was by Loring Coleman, and it is an oil, which surprised Joan Meenan.
Jackie Baus might not be here today, but she was in the picture there with Al Young and the 4 children. That was her.
She's in the photograph I showed?
A young store with Al Young and the little
Pardon?
children.
Your brother, her brother was on the other side?
Yeah.
The little children at the last picture? Oh, okay. Questions? Pardon? Any other questions? No? No? Okay. Okay, now we have an invitation that is going to be made to you right now.
I'd like to ask anyone who would like to come to tie sales and have an informal walk around the place, and I'll answer questions, what's that tower in the back and that sort of thing. If you would like to come and walk through, there will be a couple of tie sales employees there who will try to answer your questions. Another thing, Lee, while I have the mic, we have a former board member, Terry Tolman. Terry?
Felix Lazar.
And another one, okay, another former board member. They couldn't stay with us too long, and then they both left openings.
Thank you. So that'll be after refreshments. Please have refreshments now, and then... After looking at the sales table. Yes, Debbie. Looking at the sales table. We do sell wonderful reproduction maps of 1875, 1794, and 1830. Yes, Joan. Okay, wait. Being recorded.
Where did the painting of the devil and God come from?
Where does the painting? Yeah. Google.
It's not not in Sudbury.
I looked everywhere for a picture of him being pushed down, but I couldn't find it. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy.